ke koe piri. Ako hoki mai hoki tēnei tangata wangani hoki tō tātou komiti. Nō re pai hoki tēnei e te aho piki haere ke taku painga. Whakarohi hoki a hau e te hihi ke ara mai hoki ke au te rānei. E mohe nei hoki ngai ngā kaupapa e te kawangi hoki tō tātou komiti Maori. Mo tō tātou rōpu o te matau Maori. Hoki, haere no ke koe Bill, kia ora. Kei rere ke Katalaina. Si. Kia ora Bill, ka me ho. E te ino e ho. No rere me ino hoki tata. Sorry Charlie. Mihi mai whakatau mai ho. Kai no mai la koe. E rata o te kauni hera mo te wairo. Re ngā mi, hala mai. Ai te mangi mi ngāna hera pona te toka tūri tapu. Whakurungi mai tēne mātou ki roto ki te aro hanoa. Anei rā nohi mātou o ponunga, o tai ki mū tōku tu aroa no hoki. Te whakamanaki tia mai nohi tēnei hui huinga. Waingani hoki tō tātou rōpu mo te kauni hera aro rohe, mo te matau o Maui te rāne. Manaki tia mai nohi rātou kei roto ki ngā hohi peranga manaai kainga. Me noho taumaha tia, ki piki te ora, piki te kaha me te mara matanga ki rungi tēnā, me tēnā rātou. Reire te mange mi ngāna hera pona te toka tūri tapu. Whakurungi mai tōne mātou ki rato ki te aro hanoa. Pai here te tōne mātou. Ki rato ki te rangi Māori ngā wākatoa. Ka koe no ki te mange hei tautuka mai. Ai nei, ake nei, ai.
Kia ora.
Mātua me koe papa.
Tēnei te mihi kia koe rā anko. Ko ruatahi ko auntie. Me kira te whai anō i a koro. Mehe mea ka tū mai, uhe nei rai a tātou i te karakia mai te pirihi te kai karakia. Ka tahi ka tū mai tētahi ka roto i te whakamenenga nei. Kia mohea mai rā tātou, ka tau mai ka roto i āku nei taringa tēnei te mihi te tūku whakamoi me tikainu. Nō reira ka tāu ke mihi ki a koe, ki a kōrua rā ko auntie. Ka hoki mai rā me kira te hauora. Hei wanganui rai a tātou. Nō reira tēnā koe, tēnā tātou.
I tautoko te kōrero a pere, ango. Ka mi ki a koe mo tō karakia whakamuimiti ki a tātou atua i whakatikira tātou hui i tēnei wā. He mihi anō ki a koutou, he hui nei i tēnei wā, kānohi ora. Kei te tino pai, kei te tini hariko te kiti o koutou kānohi ora. I tēnei wā, ka huri ki a tātou agenda mō tātou hui. So we've got a number of apologies. So I'll start with, we've got apologies from Rex and from James. From the operational perspective, Petty, are there any more apologies?
Finally?
Rick Barker is not here, Zach is not here, Roger is not here.
From the operational team, is there any other apologies from Maori? We'll get into our...
No.
No. So we do have apologies from Paura Sesia, Mawiwi ana ia. So he has a refa at this point in time, so he's decided to stay home, keep us all safe.
That's great.
I've sent him an email and asked him if he wants to zoom in. At this stage, I haven't had a reply back. We also have had apologies from Zach and Roger. They're both looking to arrive late. Okay, we've also had an apology from Rose, who needs to leave early, at no later than 1 p.m. Were there any further apologies? We've got them all.
Chair, just in relation to item 7 on the agenda, albeit that we have the apology from the Chair and also from the Chief Executive, I've put forward a late item which summarises where we're currently at.
Couple.
I don't mind, Chair. Yep, I've got to be away by 2:15.
We'll make sure of that, Charlie.
Kia ora.
Oh, Mike, what about Brian Gregory?
Beg your pardon?
Brian Gregory.
So Brian, Choppy's no longer a... Yep.
Tino Maori here.
At that time when they were making the appointments, Maui.
Okay.
No further appointments. Can I have a mover for the...
Yeah.
Thank you, Michelle. and Api Singa.
Aye.
All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Carried. Okay, so just in regards to our agenda, so we have our agenda there, and I think there was some confusion around the workshop to follow. So we, for our committee members, our Māori committee members, we will remember we had a workshop in regards to our terms of reference and charter, and we said we would follow on at the conclusion of our Māori committee meeting. That is the workshop. Ka pai? No later than 3 o'clock. We will not go past 3 o'clock. That is not a promise, that is a definite.
We all have to promise if we can.
Because there are people who need to travel back out of the district, back into Whitehall, Central Hawke's Bay, area. So hence the reason for the 3 o'clocker. Okay. So with that, we're going to move into item 4. Confirmation of minutes for our Māori committee held on the 6th of May 2020. So we are looking for corrections, omissions, matters arising.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I think I might just get up on the representative update. So it's just the last bullet point, and I was making reference to considering that tank submissions period may provide insufficient time, because at that time of, we've just come through the COVID restrictions. So rather than suggesting that it does provide insufficient time, that's all.
Oops, sorry.
And as a consequence to that, we saw how there was pressure in other sectors of the community as a result of that ambitious timeframe.
Okay, so we're on page 3. Are there any other corrections, omissions, matters?
I had a point, and I did send it into the regional council, and it was just in relation to a note in relation to why I abstained from the vote in regards to the pest management and the 1080 issue. And I did send it a note, and it was just basically how it could be noted is due to concerns raised pest management by community and whānau and local Te Harato Tarawera marae area that within the boundary rohe of Te Whanganui-a-Rotu, I'm not in a position to support or not support that motion that we passed. So it's just why I abstained, and I think Annalise got that in writing, so just to notify. Yep.
Okay, that
So if
was
we can
on
have that
page
added.
4.
Yeah.
Yep.
Currently on page 4. Corrections, omissions, matters arising. Page 5. Page 6. There are no further corrections, omissions, or matters arising. Can I please have a mover and a seconder who were present?
Yep, move it.
Thank you, Peter. And Mare. Seconded Mare. Are there any further comments? If not, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody
I
opposed?
wasn't here.
Thank you. Carried unanimously. Okay, moving along to item 5. So these are the follow-ups from the previous committee meetings. Page. Yep. Chris, we've got one here from you, mate.
Yeah, so it's written in there. So there was a concern raised around the river at Pakafire. So just to advise everyone, we're doing some modelling around the confluence of the Rapari and Karamu streams with a view that that may be able to be enhanced. And there was also a question around whether the planting program is on hold. The planting program is not on hold, and we have an extensive planting program currently underway.
Are there any questions for Chris?
I suppose some of this in relation to this corridor might come into some of the other corridor that we're going to have in reports in regards to water and that. So we'd mostly, leave that question for that discussion. Kia ora.
Item 2. So does the Takiwā reports Liz Lambert?
Yeah, and so the status there is as it reads from Liz. Just if there's any particular questions or.
We've had some more follow-up meetings, and we had our 5th and last. So our group that have been, our tangata whenua representatives that have been involved in communicating with District Council, we've got to our bottom lines now, and we're going to submit that feedback to District Council and Regional Council. So pretty much hasn't changed. We still want land discharge and no mortuary waste in our oxidation pond or pipes.
Moving along to point 3. This was in regards to shovel-ready PGF projects.
There is a small piece as part of the update in the late item that I've indicated at part 7.
And just in relation to PGF, and I did raise it in the economic void or mahui that I attended in regards to obviously the benefits for Māori in the PGF application, and then obviously for Māori aspiration. So it was only a small kōrero, but I think it's an important kōrero how we address Māori concerns with any PGF application.
And finally on to point 4 in regards to the 3 waters.
And so it's actually in the set of papers in terms of the response that was sent out on the 4th.
Was sent out.
Were there any questions in regards to that? I think we can have quite a lengthy discussion in regards to why, especially in regards to Hiratonga's paper. This is quite a significant paper around water, so I think we're going to have quite an in-depth discussion around that, and that's fine. So can we just move that we accept the follow-up items? Thank you, Annie White. Seconder, please. Thank you, Charlie.
My pleasure.
All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Thank you. Carried. So can we just, in this late items, Pierre, you raised the question in regards to James's Palmer's late item. I did raise with Anna Lee in regards to an item that Api wanted to put on the agenda around the Transport Committee. Unfortunately, got lost in translation, kei te pai. Can we have his report added as late items as well? That'll save us bringing it up in minor items. Kei te pai tērā? Okay then, Api, so we'll deal with you one as an item rather than just a late item. Sorry, a minor item. So we'll do your one after the Chair's verbal update, Api. Okay, moving to item 6. So this is the Takiwa reports. So we kind of know that Hiratonga's report is going to cause quite an in-depth discussion. I would like to leave that one for last. And let's have that in-depth discussion without having it broken. So with that, can I start with Wairō through to Ahuriri? Hopefully by that time, Tamate's arrived. Tamate pōkai whenua, ko huri a haere, tipi haere. So hopefully they'll arrive by then, and then we'll finish off with Hiratonga. Ka pai tērā?
Okay. So yeah, I'll take it as read. Just in addition to my kōrero about the sedimentation issues, that's our main issue in Wairō, and notably high corolla levels in the summer. Now we've got the biotoxin in the moana again, and I'm sure it'll go further than mohaka, as it usually does go all the way to Rongo Wahine. So this seems to be the norm now, but it's getting worse. And just to highlight that once again, that the sedimentation issue from highly erodible lands and no trees is not going to get any better in Wairō. So just for us, that focus back on there, and the climate change comment was I've been to one committee meeting. We've been to one committee meeting, and there's none for the rest of the year. So it's supposed to be a priority. It's supposed to be one of the overarching things about the regional council. We've got to consider climate change and the effects it's going to have on our environment and our people, and as opposed to water storage, we also need to look at the civil defence side of things, because it's going to be impacting our people the most as climate change keeps on hitting the environment. It's going to put those who are in the can ill afford to move from where they are, get away from the rising seas. It's going to affect employment. It's going to affect our kai, and those waterways are going to turn toxic. And so yeah, just to put that reminder there. So pretty much everything else, we're in the middle of, we went to AFCO. AFCO's in 5 years' time, they've got to reapply for their consent. So we have an annual report from them, and very much have the Niki crew involved in that with Niall and Shade. And they are a very big part of our tile unit. Whenever there's anything like that involved, they come and assist us, and much appreciated. So that's coming up. We've been talking to AFCO and the District Council's wastewater. But the other thing that I didn't mention in here, and that I should have, because it took up 3 weeks of my life, was we did a PGF application and Maori renovation. So all up we did 28. 28, and it was just under $2 million. So we're waiting to hear. Well, we've had, the only feedback we've had is it's looking positive.
Nice.
Yeah, that was pretty much it for my report. And just to highlight the, as Katarina mentioned, I went up to Opotama and met with the mana whenua there. There's a dump station there for the Freedom Campus, and apparently it's non-consented. So I did highlight that to Tania, consent person here, on the Zoom, hui on another subject. And talking about Wāhi Tapu, Blue Bay Motor Camp there, all Wāhi Tapu, and then you've got these toilets there, public toilets, and now they're going to put a dump station, and I had a look. I informed Tani on Wednesday, I went there Saturday to meet with the mana whenua, and they put a little bit of a lock on it, because it's quite crude. It's just a outlet, and they get their bucket and throw it in, and then they had a tap above it, and people were washing their dishes, and yeah. Anyway, the mana whenua aren't happy with that, and I've referred them to Apiata because it'll have to go through a consent process. So Wairoa District Council, that's the second time we've had non-compliant sewage issues. So very difficult to work through a wastewater consent when you're coming up against things like this. Kia ora.
That wouldn't meet the consent process, so would it, with effects on Wāhi Tapu under the Act, under the section 6E, or would it be, hey, it wouldn't meet the terms?
I think so. Yeah.
So were there any other questions for Michelle? Katarina, did you want to comment on the camping ground?
Just that I've had feedback from the mana whenua, and they wanted me to raise the issue up, but I think that yes, look into it if you can. No one's been consulted out there. The taupo whenua hasn't, and the ratepayers as well haven't been consulted. And yeah, we'll just leave it at that. Know what's going on there. We'll let Tania know. That's the best we could do, and Api at the RPC.
Just to confirm through the chair that the approach to Tania Diak in terms of the consent compliance is the right approach, and just to leave them to look at it now.
I think she must have, because apparently, according to the mana whenua, that was all locked, and that had just happened. So she must have rung or something. I don't know, but the tap's been closed off.
So would we have that as an action point to report back, and in relation to the Act, and then how that's happened. But that's what I want to know. If it's happened, where has it met the RMA Act to discharge on wahi tapu? Because I don't think it would meet those. If that's the case, I'm just saying I don't know all the information, but I'd like to know. Hey.
Yes, and Pauline Tangiora is still with us today. She's the one most knowledgeable about that area.
It's water discharge, and is that the responsibility of the regional council when you discharge contaminants?
The non-compliance part in terms of the consent. So probably two aspects there. One is probably a status at the next one in terms of where that's at, and the other part is clarification around effect on wahi tapu.
Thank you.
Ka pai. Are there any other further questions for Michelle? And if not, I'm going to head to Kataraina, followed by Uncle Bill. Kataraina, can we have your report? And Uncle Bill, I understood you had some things you wanted to raise as well.
So pretty much just a little update. We're going into a partnership with GNS Science as we're trying to provide some ruau moko or pūrākau and kōrero around the Hikurangi subduction area around earthquake behaviour. So that's been a sort of kaupapa in the making for the last 12 months. So we're going to roll out some wānanga around our marae over the next 12 months. Just to add on to the erosion rahi around the awa with the works crew led by Graham Edmondson, it's going really well. Te Rauhina's been, it's all prepared, all the battering's been done for about 300 or so metres. It's real nice work, ready for planting. And just liaising with all the tangata whenua around planting days. I think that's all we've got to say besides the sediments. You can notice it at the bar quite substantially at the moment, and you know it's quite a sensitive fishing time. So just letting you know, according to the local fishermen and from our own sites, there's quite a quite an amount of sediment at the bar. Even though it was opened manually, yeah, it still didn't take long to build up. I do wonder if the Waihi Dam and the effects of the dam upstream a wee bit more has, you know, need to know what their program is around their opening of their gates and flushing out their gates. If that could be brought to the table at some stage, maybe as an action point. And to also tautoko what Michelle's saying, the erosion up the Waio and up the Hangaroa Ruakaturi is really poor, and these farm plans couldn't come any sooner to start putting plants out there, riparian planting the whole area. It's really poor. That's all for me. Kia ora.
So were there any questions for Kataraina before we go into Uncle Bill?
Just one, and it was more of a follow-up. Tēnā koe Kataraina. It was just a follow-up in terms of a report I think that you undertook in relation to the cultural impact on the awa.
Yes.
And just trying to get a deadline in terms of the receipt of that report, if I could, please.
Okay.
Kia ora. Thank you.
No further questions for Kataraina. Uncle Bill?
Kia ora koutou katoa. Overtime, and then the street, it was locked. I visited yesterday. It was locked. In conversation with Craig that he will be meeting with myself, I suppose, first, and then the tangata whenua to talk about that with the two representatives from Wairo as well. So that's on hold at the moment. So there's another one at Maia Beach that's supposed to be done. We'll probably talk about that one as well. So that's those vans that come down and camp. You know, it's locked, so they can't use it at the moment. Now, the other one is for each and every one of you, because we're all related. That is where Rapa came across to talk to Tama Pōkai Whenua, to tell him that Kahukura Nui was born. And it's right close to where that sump is, very close, and they formed a pipe by there. And they met him, and then of course he mentioned about when the mau fish goes beyond Nukutora, it never returns. So he didn't go to see his son. He went on down to the South Island, as we all know. Kia ora. Well, the other one is that I spoke to Mike and Pierre, that the attachments that you have received on your table, that they be collected and maybe Anita can do it and put into our courier, which will be Michelle, to bring them back to us in Wairau. Kia ora.
Ka pai, uncle. We'll make sure we deliver it to fast post.
Mahi anō tāu.
Were there any?
I might as well finish mine and I'll do the listening. The Kaiwaito, the court waiwhara, is taken over by the tangata whenua now under the Mahia Maori Committee, and we're doing a survey of the ancestral spots on it, as well as the kaimona that's in the river, and the fish that goes up and down, particularly whiteback, and that is to be done. And we've got an AGM meeting later on, and the dredging that I mentioned before, it's on hold because of our COVID restrictions. And I'll I've got the maps done, but I'll be meeting with Whakaki and Ngamotu and Maungawhio, the 3 lakes. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Uncle Bill. Any further questions for Uncle Bill in regards to his report? Kia ora. Thank you, Wairo. Ahuriri.
Okay, I'll just summarise it, and I'll take it as read that people read through the report, but I'll summarise the main points. Obviously, we're still coming out of COVID-19. A lot of mahi done right throughout the rohi with all our tai whenua, our hapu iwi. And so just acknowledging that, and also acknowledging for ahuriri tai whenua, obviously it's not our core business. And as I mentioned before, we're starting to transition out of that. We've just about transitioned out of that, and we'll leave that up to the agencies that do that every day to work with whānau. The other point was, just picking up the point from Wairoa around those marae development packages. Obviously, Te Whangau and Orotu have been working with Hera Taunga in regards to release and working with our marae to support them in the application process. I think I did mention to someone that obviously from our whānau perspective, it's in delivery of the operational mahi that goes on the marae is our measure, because that's our KPI. So if whānau have said, yep, it's good for the government to make a release and for funding to be put there, but then obviously when we see a hammer and nail on the marae, we know it's working. So that would be the measure of the outcome of that project, and looking forward to our marae getting some mahi done there. Just in relation to, also just put in there, we're doing a project up the Ripio, which is comes off the Mohaka. So we're planting, well, this year we're planting 50,000. It was meant to be today, but we postponed it till tomorrow because of the rough weather and the snow. So we've got whānau in there planting 50,000 trees to stabilise the Ripia catchment and obviously to reduce siltation down on the lower Mohaka. So that project was meant to start, well, it started a couple of years ago, but today, tomorrow, they'll be starting to plant the 50,000 manuka we put in this year. And then the following year we plant our natives. So as we know, it's going to act as a nursery, and then we let our other dominant native species slowly start to come through over a longer period. So that project's underway and working well and getting a good outcome for meeting some of the objectives of the council in regards to siltation. And obviously with Matariki and Takarua and new seasons, and that fits in a good time for planting projects and new beginnings. So we had our kaumātua up there, blessed our site, Kipatoa, who you've done a lot of mahi with the regional council. He whakapapas in that area, so we had him open up a few weeks ago up there. Just a couple other points too, just around the RMA, and I pick up there seems to be a thread or common thread throughout our committee meetings in regards to wahi tapu, and we did talk about it this morning as it's a core objective and it's in the charter, and I know we're reviewing the charter, so that'll come up in our kōrero around wahi tapu and protection, and it's always good to give an example, and then people, when I give an example, then people can relate that. Obviously, we've got our examples up in Wairoa, what's happening there in wahi tapu. If we look at what's happened to Te Ihu o Te Rei, which is just out past the airport, it's an old past traditional site, and I know Rosie spends a lot of time out there, our marae from Pitani and Tongoe, and also all our marae's whakapapa into that area, because it has a big whakapapa that goes with it, because it was the entrance to the harbour. And then obviously, I suppose the point is desecration of a site, and then what we do about it to address that. And I know Napier City Council, because we've said, as an example, we've put a complaint into Heritage New Zealand, the Napier City Council, and they're going through a formal investigation in regards to the mahi that's gone on there by the gun club, and how do we stop that and address that from happening. So I think it's a bigger discussion and a corridor we need to have, and as I said with our charter, that's one of the key points as leaders on this committee we need to address, and then obviously make the different bodies, Napier City Council, Regional Council, obviously we need to work together to make sure we're protecting those sites. So it's just to make it aware, and then when I hear what's happening in Wairoa, I think it's throughout our rohi, and I know the Napier City Council, we're working with them on the review of their draft annual plan to address some of those issues. But from an operational perspective, we need to make sure that's implemented, because we're talking about it, but there's legislation in place now to protect those sites. So if it's not doing its job, then we need to look at that as a committee, because that's what we're here for, and it's in our charter. So I always think, hey, if it's in the charter, we need to implement it. So that was just in regards to that wahi tapu, which I think it's really important. And I talked a bit about the MOU, which we're building, or Ohiri Taifena is building with the Napier City Council, but that's obviously part of those discussions around protecting our wahi tapu. One other point, and I did send it through to Anna Lee and to Rex, and Rex isn't here, just to raise, because we hadn't put in our report, and that was in regards to, and it'll come up in the water corridor, and Michelle raised it. It was in regards to the ahuriri as a pātaka kai for our whānau, and then to see it close down us telling whānau, and toxins and build up, and you read the scientific information, but toxins and it's nitrogen and washout as well from farms. So when we look at cause, they say it's a naturally occurs, but then when you look at some of the other scientific information, it's what goes into there, it's nitrates and other man-made causes that causes those toxins. So I suppose it's an important subject, and I know Mare's going to talk about the water, but that's a major concern for ahuriri at the moment, because we're in COVID-19, pātaka kai. That's what's helping feed some of our whānau, and then if they can't access that resource, where they meant to go for their kai. So very important corridor that we need to be on top of, and because the regional councils, through legislation's got a responsibility to help manage that. Obviously, we need to look at what's being done, or ask the question. You know, we can come to this meeting and ask the question, and then look at what proactive measures are going to be undertaken to protect that. So I think that's quite an important corridor. And I did email the regional council to say, hey, I hadn't put it on my report, but it was something we needed to look at addressing, and then we need some comms around that to get out to our community to say, hey, because we're saying to them, hey, don't get any kaimoana, and they're saying to us, hey, we've got to feed ourselves, you've got to go to Takitimu and buy us some mussels, and things like that. So I don't disagree with them. So that's just a corridor I think that we need to have a conversation about. It may be brought up in Mare's corridor that's coming up. Just one other point I didn't put on our report. We're supporting some training for our rangatahi, doing some drone work. So we're going to put them through because we're always wanting someone to do some drone work, and we've got no whānau that do it. So at the moment, we're just looking at supporting 3 rangatahi that are still at school and saying, hey, we've got a drone. We purchased the drone, and then we're going to say to them, hey, put on here's some training to a CAA licence, and then there may be some opportunity for you to do some work across the board for Māori, because our tai whenua's needing it, other ahu whenua trusts are needing it. So I'm just saying that. So I'm just saying to the regional council, if there's any opportunity that you can support those rangatahi that we're going to put through, that'll be great. It's like mapping and things like that, and then our respective organisations could potentially use them to drone, and then when we have these presentations, just gives us another tool in our kit. Right, that's me. Kia ora.
Any pātai for Ahirere?
Probably not a pātai, but just in terms of the wāhi tapu and the reference to Te Hua Tarai. So there's 2 active investigations underway at the moment. NCC, Napier City Council, is one in response to the gun club in Te Hua Tarai. And the other one is Te Roro o Kuri, which is in proximity, and that's an active investigation also by Pauhere Taonga, Cultural Heritage New Zealand, to which Hawke's Bay Regional Council is joined, given that we have the operational part of the asset, Cycleway. So that's active at the moment as well, just as a matter of transparency around this.
So it'll be just, as everyone can see, that it's constant, and Tongoia, you mentioned before, whatever, down at Waipataki on the maunga, and we had several calls as well about our traditional side, and I know the subdivision going up there, and one Mariwa talked about.
The one up at the beach, where they've already started putting up some, sections for sale, and not having their conversations with any of the whānau or the hapus out at Tongoil. So,
Waipataki out that way?
Yeah, up at the beach, right up at the beach, Waipataki is over the hill. That's that one. But we also got the one up at more back towards up on the beach site that they've already started putting the sections up there for sale, and I think Mangaharuru's taking that on board. Mangaharuru Tangi too.
And it's a flood-prone site, you look at the whakapapa, and I read the history, because I looked at buying a section, not there, but out of the area, so I researched it, and I remember talking to the planner for the regional council. He said, mate, we'll never approve anything out there because it's a flood zone, and it's got a whakapapa when you read through the documentation, over 100 years of flooding. It's a natural area, so you just wonder how these developments get through the process when it's naturally a potential hazard going into the future. And so, I just think, with wahi tapu, everything that we've raised, it is we need to look at it. Kia ora.
So, Piri, through the chair, it's just worth noting that the Hawke's Bay Regional Council objected to that development going ahead, but our objection was overruled through the planning process, and it was around the natural hazard profile of that site.
Any further questions for Auru? Ka pai. So as you can see, Tamati hasn't arrived yet. Ka pai. So we're going to go straight to your head of Taonga. Thank you, Māori.
Whoa, where do I
So settle in, folks. Settle in. Get comfortable.
Tēnā koe, Māori.
Tuatahi e mihi ka waki ki a koe. Hāme, nau te pāwhakawaira timatai me te kātū ki te rangi ki a whakamāmātuhu rahi kei mui a mātou arawaro i te rangi nei. Hoi anō me ki ka ki te au koe korua hoki ki a koe hoki. E tēnā, me ki te rangi nei, hariko te ngākau te ki te a korua. Annalise, thanks for reminding us about the reports. If you hadn't reminded me, I wouldn't have stuck this report in.
That's okay.
And in my haste, I went back over it and saw some typos. So,
That's okay.
yeah, but look, folks, our office is just under thwart of the number of notifications, consents, plan change 9, plan change 7. Of course, as it runs past our back doorstep from the hinterlands of Ruatanewha. And so I guess I've tried to imbue as much of that from what I see every day running through my email box and having to respond back to council officers, etc. Quite overwhelming. And I guess when I reflect back on my involvement and engagement, particularly where prior to this, the plan, and going into consenting of water takes, etc. We were always pushed back by the extent that our issues, unfortunately, were disenabled or disallowed because the plan change was in effect the guiding principle by which the scope of our arguments, particularly without getting to go too deep. But, you know, just to mention that we know that there were in cases quite a number of our waterways, streams that were heavily over-allocated, and of course plan reflected that, but more importantly, both the plan has to work in conjunction with the regional resource management plan. So herein lies a little bit of complexity in terms of ensuring that when you pick up the document, that it is clear without complexity, you know, that there is a policy, and that you would think that everything kind of would reflect in a lovely world of vertical integration. But you have to go jumping all over the place to see the policy, the limits, the standards, all over the place. It's a real complex document. That's what I've got to say about this. And I think it's fair to say that when you look to the purpose of the RMA and, of course, Manawa Te Wai, it's really hard for us to engage into Plan Change 9 without considering how well it gives expression to the purpose and principles of the RMA, which we know, just remind ourselves, to promote the sustainable management of natural physical resources. And that 5B point is much made clearer, where the Act makes reference to safeguarding the life-supporting capacity of air, water, soil and ecosystems. So I come from a cultural memory base of my uncles and aunties that came from a cultural memory base of their uncles and aunties about the protection of Maori. And we've seen a huge decline both in terms of both water quantity and water quality over these years. And the previous plans have enabled that type of trend to carry on. And we look forward to a plan change, because really the fundamental basis of a plan change is to change people's behaviours particularly towards land use management, which is inherent around such big issues as water abstraction. Kia ora. And we don't see any significant change with the proposed Plan Change 9. In fact, we see a constant, this is a status quo of that. What it needs and requires is directive regulation rather than a staged approach. So I've seen staged approaches, and for example, one of those staged approaches is looking at some words around, and it's changed its name over time, but basically augmentation was the ability to take water from groundwater and pump it up into surface water, and there are tikanga issues with regards to where in our worldview we see that sort of matter happening. It's now called stream enhancement, so the idea which is in this plan is to consider such places, and we have an example of that on the Te Raupare. Let's be clear, we should be pronouncing our names properly, Te Raupare, if we're going to be talking in this environment. So that, of course, is a unique area in the catchment, as part of the Karamu catchment. We're talking about catchment areas, the Tutaikuri, Ahuriri, Ngaruroro and Karamu. There's something like about 500 square miles just within the Karamu catchment. And that you've got all quadrant areas that have got our marae and hapu, basically picture in your mind's eye on the Heretaunga Plains, pretty much fixed around the peripherals of the Heretaunga Plains, with a number of contributing streams that come from the Ngaruroro, which recharges the The aquifer, that aquifer is a taonga and should be referred to as a taonga. There is no allocation on it. There was a prohibition 2 years ago. It should have at least, and I've just described this particular trend, whānau, that over on paper there's, I should have brought the diagram in with me, but the trend is that 180 cubic metres of water is assigned on paper to abstract groundwater out of the aquifer. At present, records will tell us that those that are abstracting the water are sitting somewhere around about 90 million cubes. Of course, we ran into the problems with the Havelock North Campylobacter issue as symptomatic of there being, of course, an issue on abstraction, particularly by a sensitive stream called the Mangatiritere. As a result of not enough water going in to recharge the aquifer, and of course when you look at the numbers on the Mangatiritere, which is associated with the Karamu stream, it's something like about 280% over allocated. So all of that science and all of that data is in this organisation to tell us. And another interesting number is, of course, in starting in the opposite direction, picture in your mind's eye, Marae Kākoho, there's a lovely little stream called the Paritua, which meanders its way through a water race, which goes up into Mike Glazebrook's water storage, and that he's got a water gate that enables there to be a replenishment of water that goes through this Paritua stream. And this is over in the Bridge Pa area. So Marae Kākoho, down to Bridge Pa, there's the stream called the Paritua. And here again, data and records from this organisation will tell that of that total volume of water down the Paritua, 93% of it is abstracted for irrigational purposes, leaving only 7% for the natural biodiversity. And of course, we've seen in extreme situations, and let's face it, that we're going through climate change issues at the moment. So it makes this issue even doubly hard. And of course, the natural biodiversity, the tuna, has been under extreme pressure over the last few years. And we've got a chorus of our people out at Ngāti Rahunga, Mangaro Marae, Korongata, that had basically got fed up because of the inability to source water from their own wells. They're now on town supply. Once the Paritua gets to the Raukawa Road, it changes its name to the Kārewarewa. And then it starts to make its way over land such as the Mangaro, the Tūrāmoe, to the back of Pakipaki. You know, folks, back in the 1960s, before the motorway went through where it is currently at the moment, it actually went down the old Pakipaki Road, which goes past the marae. That place where you had, where you see now the motorway going through, was once a good tauranga ika fishing mahina kai, where they would get pātaki, that's flounder, and all freshwater kaura and a number of other species back in the 1960s. So it hasn't been, you know, as if this has been 50 years ago. This has just happened in the last quarter of a century. Now, I guess where I'm going on this is that I guess the second big issue, of course, within the plan is there's this whole idea of a staged approach. A staged approach in their own, instead of direct regulation, is an assumption, is a blinking assumption that if we do certain things around mitigating, using processes around stream enhancement, for one, and I didn't bring my book with me, but other mitigation processes around stage mitigation, then we have to believe in the science world, which you've got to say, you know, I'm an advocate that mātauranga Maori and science, Western science, has to meet somewhere in the middle. It's not good enough to actually lean on one world view where our mātauranga Māori, after decades of cultural memory etched into our minds, into our hearts, is actually a gap apart from this Western science. Somewhere in amongst this has to be, you know, an agreed expectation on things. That's where we're coming from. And so, you know, water to us is viewed as a taonga. It's a treasure. And of course, where Maori and ecosystem health are protected and provided for, it has to be consistent with the plan. And therein lies an inconsistency. What more can I say without having to chip down? I think I'll just leave it with regards to that first item. And of course, as a result of the fact that we got a letter basically asking how would tank governance be composed of, it missed the very point, and this is a warning for all of those that are now having to confront this very process as it's moving from us up to Mohaka. Be a part of the co-design right from the word go, because we weren't a part of that whole co-design. We got left out. We tried to push ourselves back into saying, look, there needs to be a parallel body of Māori tangata whenua in parallel running alongside of this process, and it will at times merge. It will provide I'm sure, the advocacy, because we really need to get into our own space. Mohaka, you're going to be talking about 3 iwi, you know. We had this tank catchment brought in 30 stakeholders around the table. I probably would have missed maybe 3 or 4 of those meetings over 6 years. It boiled right down to a hand-picked number of tangata whenua, as well as, of course, the important players such as Ngāti Kahungunu iwi and, of course, the respective Tai whenua. At times, probably 4 or 5 of us that sat in amongst the so-called collaborative stakeholder meeting were surrounded by about 30 to 50 others. And so it's quite intimidating when you try and talk our Māori worldview to those that have got another set of worldviews. So you've got to iron those problems out before you get there, otherwise you're going to end up with the taste of where we're coming from. And this is just the start, I promise you. And so, so our response back to the tank governance was basically to say, look at an iwi-centred governance composition makeup, folks, rather than a council-centred composition. It has to, I think, in this day and age, reflect the true spirit of active partnership, and it has to emanate in some way, shape or form. I mean, we've been fighting this every inch of the way since I've been sitting around this table for a very long time, since Uncle Eri back in the mid-80s. That's my cultural memory of those of my uncles and aunties that were telling me how they had expressed a lot of displeasure over the quality of their waterways, how they were disconnected away from places that provided access to get to a certain mahina kai place, a place where they could put their hinaki in. Now it's got gates, there's a huge disconnection, there's attitudes and behaviours that are disenabling this to happen, and at the same time we're losing our mātauranga Māori with regards to our interests and values related to a whole set of values with regards to that being carried on into future generations. The mātauranga that's around the pūtaiao aspect when you go to the side of a river, the beach, or even into the upper hinterlands. All of that's now been stopped, and so there's a discontinuation of our mātauranga Māori not happening. And lastly of all, I guess this is economically being driven. Look, look, we're in that. Māori are in all of these well-being spaces. We figure really, really high in the economic space, along with our cultural. And of course, when you look at the social deprivation within this area, you've got to ask yourself, let me just remind you, We've got the highest social deprivation in the country. Look at the OECD figures. Look at how they measure this. Co-Gini efficiency. It's a 0.1 standard. That's where anything above 0.1 is a co-efficiency, you're in serious problems. We are at 0.8. How serious is that? And if we're talking about economy, where's the link into picking up that social deprivation? We want to be a part of this. We have to have our own Maori economy. And so I'm not confident that this plan is going to service or provide those means to an end. Notwithstanding, of course, those that are going to be around the table that are making the decisions. It's got to be an EB-centric model. And so that's that matter. Can I just stop and pause?
Yeah. So just, I think just one of the things that kind of stood out for me, Mare, in the overall breadth of your conversation was in regards to the state of the relationship. I got the sense that your participation through the tank workshops and that whole tank process was one of stakeholder versus, say, perhaps one of treaty partner.
That would be the clear sense that I got. We try to remind them that we were the treaty partner.
So I suppose one of my questions to Council is, what is the commitment to the treaty? What is your commitment to your treaty partner? And how do you demonstrate that if we are still regarded as a stakeholder? Just putting it out there.
It's a big question.
Yes.
It's an important question. Held a mic through the table, through the chair. I had a hoki tēnei e te korora mai mo te kumara mo tōna nei reka, ne? Ano te mea no te taipe no hera taunga tunu tāua nei. But I'd just like to remind everyone here that kei te tika kei ngā kōrero puta mai a Māori te rāne. We keep repeating ourselves year in and year out, around this table. Year in, year out. You know, I've been here over 20 years. And all those other politicians used to say the same thing to the council and have these changes done. You know, there's been bugger all really done, you know. And I just want to you know, to refer in my area to Hawke, we had a big fight there concerning the Pika swamp area. There was no consultation with us at Te Hawke before they went ahead and sprayed those willow trees. Oh, yeah, it did the trick, but it got rid of a lot of our eels as well. You know, and you go back, and that just reminds me about all those things that we've been fighting over the years, and we still got it with us today. You know, and it's wonderful to know that even from Te Wairoa, whatever Peter's saying up in Pāhuera, but concentrate within your own region. That's what I always say. Yeah, we had no doubt, we had arguments and everything with the council with the things that they did from the waterways from Pokawa, Lake Pokawa out to the Karamu stream, and they just turned a deaf ear on us. But we don't ever want to see that happen again, you know. Here's a moment in time. I don't want to stray too far away from Ngāti Kaunguni, but when you look at what they're going to do with the Waikato River, you know, they're going to take a lot of water in to supply Tāmaki Makaurau. They're selling all our water here and selling it away, sending it away overseas, so they must be doing the same up there. You know, drilling, boring for it, bottling it and sending it overseas. You know, we're arguing a case that a lot of these things should have been ironed out for us now, you know. I mean, I'm not apologizing to get up and really hum and ha about, but I think it's about time we started trying to do something, you know. Concentrate within your own regions. Yeah, so. Koina hoki tāku. Yeah, I just want to sing Māori, pai ngā kōrero. Thank you.
E hara tēnei te whakauitu ki tō pāpai nunui rā. Because Tank started 7 years ago, about 7 years ago. So in more recent times, because Tank's going to go through that submission process, and so it's still going through that process there.
Kai te tātari tātou katoa me ona whakaotinga. Me kira ngā hua nau nei kōrero hea. Whananga e Māori. I guess one of the learnings, or perhaps just a comment first, I too would like to see a point, and that's certainly part of our mahi inside the partnership scene, is to see where that convergence of mātauranga Māori and Western science comes together, to be complementary as opposed to in battle with one another. I think the other point that you made was about being co-governed and led. And certainly, perhaps as a learning, that's certainly the way that Mohaka's been approached. Actually more than 3, at least 9 iwi who are part of that whole Mohaka catchment, right up to Tuwharetoa.
Right.
So that's the approach that we've taken, notwithstanding government's freshwater reforms that are coming down swift and fast with great expectation. I guess the one thing we take off that is, whereas we were looking to have all of those plan changes approved by 2023, that's been stretched out to December 2024. That said, we've got Mohaka, Wairua, Eskdale, just out here, down towards Te Aho or Te Matawa Maui, down towards Poranga Hau, Cape Turnagain. So there's a lot that needs to be compressed into that. So inside here, they're looking at how that can be done better, but certainly quite different approaches in terms of how that happens. That said, it will be moving at some pace, but consultation has to be a feature of that uncle, better than it has been previously. So e tika nei au nei kōrero. E patu mai rai aku nei tarangi e au nei kōrero e kauhautia i tarangi nei e Māori. Engari, te haere tōni tēnā.
Yeah, aha koe. You know, the one thing I just want to make clear too as well. You know, in our world, we haven't got a word enemy. Hoa riri. So we might be hoa riri to each other, but it doesn't remove the fact that we're in opposition to each other. We just want to achieve a state and leave a legacy that is going to be befitting of the expectation of future generations to come. With what's happened in the world around COVID, what's happened with what's taking place with climate change, by golly, we've got some serious issues that are impacting on our economy, on our people, and more importantly, the direct link that I say, the social deprivation. If there's going to be some bright ideas about economic recovery, by golly, they need to have some really clear strings over to the social deprivation. And the other thing too, I think, is that we can come up with measuring well-being from both a mātauranga worldview as well as a Western science view. That's not hard. It just takes the will to do it. That's what needs to happen. So when I made mention at our last meeting, Mr. Chairman, about, and it was supported by Rick Barker, and I don't think it was picked up, but I remember about what are the learnings we should be having to discuss around this. Well, unfortunately, you're hearing me today with the moans and the groans, and that, you know, we could have offset that by having a bit of special time to actually pull apart the experiences and the learning so that we can avoid these things going forward, because it's quite critical in front of you. The amount of planned change in such a compressed time, by golly, you're going to have to be walking on water if there's going to be an ability to actually pull people and mobilise the support that's required to get all of this major work across the line. So, any other questions? Sorry, I'm rambling on.
So just Peter, if I can return to my question in regards to Hawke's Bay Regionals Council understanding around the Treaty of Waitangi, its obligation to the Treaty of Waitangi, therefore its obligation to the partner. How does the Regional Council demonstrate how it goes about that and actions that? I suppose, yeah, that'd be, I suppose, for me, would be a good starting point to understand how the so-called relationship is working.
So the starting point, not necessarily the ending of where we mutually land up at, is already ensconced within the LGA, within the RMA, and within there it already talks about the principles. So for Hawke's Bay Regional Council, they are obligated and responsive to work within those realms. It doesn't necessarily go so far as to talk about co-governance and co-design and all of these other aspects, because it talks about giving effect to and other statements. What's clearly coming through from Governor's freshwater reforms, it's, as an example, Mātauranga Māori is part of that detail, but yet to go through its approval process. And there are other aspects in there that cause for greater alignment and that moves towards where Māori is coming from. So my short answer to that, and this is where I see this committee. So one of the aspects I've talked about previously here, and part of the role of myself and also of the Māori Partnerships team, is to propose to you a strategy wherein one element or component part will be about bringing HBRC's commitment towards the principles and the Treaty of Waitangi within its legislative parameters. So that's part of that, and the hope that this committee, as part of that collaborative discussion and design around that strategy, call it responsiveness to Māori for now in terms of Hawke's Bay Regional Council, would find your approval and certainly your advocacy and leadership moving forward. That should have the emanating effect, not only across this part of our corridor in relation to Hairway, but across those other parts, whether it's climate, whether it's biosecurity, the other functions that HBRC is responsible for. So in response to that pātai, koe nā tāku, I tēnei wā.
Thanks for that.
Just to add to the corridor, I know just to quote a corridor from Royal Councillor Curtin, he did express the opinion that maybe we need to reinterpret that partnership, and his way of reinterpreting is using bilateral agreements. It might be a better way to address that, one being one of 50 stakeholders in the room. Yeah, there should be just 2 stakeholders. Not of them and us, but you know, us all together with an agreement in place.
Good point. Thanks for that, Charles.
I just want to tautoko Māoris kōrero, because now from Tūtai Kuri Awa and Ahuriri Te Whanganui a Rotu, definitely have that aroha for our waterways. I suppose I'm coming from a pragmatic point of view where I sit on the hearings committee and we'll have plan change 9 come upon us quite soon. So when you talk about the co-design of that, I just maybe a bit more kōrero from you in terms of that hearings panel, that hear those submissions, you know, could you give me a bit more kōrero on what that may look like in terms of a co-design, or
Okay.
if I have any influence or can put the kōrero out there?
Okay, well, I didn't realise you were on there. Yeah. Look, I'll take the personalities away. I guess you may have a conflict, but I guess the way things, both practically and pragmatically in terms of tikanga, that starts off is face to face with each other. I'm going to get to the point of the composition if you're on there around the hearings panel, but insofar as co-design, the respect and values of mana, wairua, kaitiakitanga are brought to the fold, poof, face to face, with that particular hapu's influence over its natural environment. To me, that's key, is a key prerequisite that you get in all of those people around the table. I've worked with these groups in my tai whenua to have at least the confidence of knowing I can pull those sorts of people around the table to have those sorts of discussions that will melt down to a certain few that will be mandated to represent, but or have at least the responsibility of sitting inside a process, and in this regard have the ability and the support of council with the resource, which we didn't have throughout this whole kāwanatanga process. For some, they got a $50 petrol voucher, you know, 3 or 4 times during that whole process. For a lot of us, hundreds and hundreds of hours. So that's our tuku, that's our koha into that process. So I'm talking about the values, really, that are something that's quite important in terms of the relationship going forward. Now, insofar as the makeup and composition, ideally I think it would have been, from my kind of way of looking at it, to ensure that those that are on the panel, which of course will be sourced primarily out of council with, I hope, an independent person that gets to sit in there is quite important. It's your role to see the natural world through the RMA. And of course, and I've tried to, and I've gone through, and I've held my environmental commissioner's licence for over 12, 14 years, I think now, 91, hell, 20, 10, 11. So I know that when I went on to that training, it was my hope and desire that I would be able to make change, representing the views, our Māori worldview. What I found was it was like going through the pin of a needle to express that, if I could just describe that. So I know how difficult it's going to be for people that are sitting on these panels, because you have only got a very prescribed kind of way to get through this, and it's that big, the pin of a needle, rather than it's got the persuasion or the legal, the power behind it in order to achieve a desired state, which in this case is the state of how we see the world, the state of the environment through Māori mātauranga eyes. But you've got to be, I can tell you, you've got to be limited by the fact that it needs a major overhaul, that RMA, and they're going through a few things at the moment. The freshwater reforms, as we've been waiting with bated breath, all of that got to spin on its head 2 days out before the announcement, with NZ First coming in to say they support the farmers. Therefore, there was a lightning around, particularly the nitrates, which I bring up in my other part of this discussion. So, kia kaha dear. We can't save the Māori world under that sort of process, but do your very best. Hinging around 6E, 6F, 5B, all of that, the Mananō Te Wai, all of those, which in principle is great. In practical kind of use to get these sorts of plans going, that's where the gaps are. Right back down into lining up your plan change along with your regional resource management plan, because they interplay between each other. There's no vertical integration. If there was a policy, a limit, a standard, a procedure, you'd think that would be, but it's, go to this page over here, go to that over there, go to that document over there. Complex. Our people can't follow this.
So, thank you. I'll kind of let this conversation go for no longer than 15 minutes, and we will stop at that point. I know there was a few people that want to comment.
He tāpiritanga I au nei pātai e hene wai, because it is complex, absolutely. But you could talk about composition as part of the adherence panel, or you can talk about the competency within all across the panel. And so, hey, kia matatau hia ke rungi ngā whāri ki tanga kai rungi te ak te koro he rai a tāu. But also in terms of, hey, me pe he tāu mo heo tanga I te ao Māori e koro he au. Hey, e ori te ana. Hey, koe na tatanga te ke whakarite mai I e nā ngā mea e rua nei. Hey, pai atu ki te act, ngā mea ki rā te ao Māori, me ngā kōrero kairoto.
Okay, any other part?
Yeah, I have
Peter?
just a couple of points when we talk about competency, and it was actually one of our action points on the previous meeting we might have missed when we were just going over the minutes, and it was just in there, and you've done the training, I've done the training, and they're making good decisions. So, because obviously it's about getting people up to a standard, and for our whānau supporting if any of our members on the committee. So I know that was an action point that Petty was going to come back to us, and if people educated or our committee members educated, then obviously when we're engaging in this partai, then they know around the Act, which is really important. So that's one of my points is, should that become available, well, it should be becoming available through the Regional Council for committee members to partake in the legislative process, so you know how to engage in these conversations. So it'd be good at the next meeting if we can get an answer back where that is. Two, just a tautoko
I'd only, through the chair, only respond in a very general way to that. I think what happens is, notwithstanding there have been certain areas where regional council could have improved, and we've already talked about allocation. I think the other part is you have to sort of keep that tension and that pressure on, because the regional council is required as a local government to work within particular parameters. Part of that I've already talked about in terms of LGA, RMA, but also that comes down in terms of the freshwater, what's it called, fresh RMF, MS, and also the regional plan. So there's quite a few instruments that are in place, and it's those that hold HBRC to some extent to the way that and the direction that it's travelling. What we are seeing, however, as a result of the kōrero, the tuku, the tono, is that we're seeing some of that being heard and being changed at a central government level. Those are the sorts of instruments that come over that enable HBRC to look differently in terms of the way that it does its mahi. But part of where we're at the moment is that HBRC is working within what it understands to be the parameters of its legislative requirements and responsibility. There might be some contention about sort of on the edges of that, but that's probably in a general way how I can respond at the moment.
Can I make a comment? Chair? Just a quick one. Just Zach Makore took me. Sorry for my lateness. But anyway, just a quick comment. Mara and I have done a lot of diving, and we've gotten older, like many of us here. I don't want to be in a position where I haven't got soldiers behind me. And all I'm saying is that, you know, as a solution for our Maori committee that's sitting here, the idea of getting our rangatahi involved so much more earlier at this level. If we're going to have them and talk to them about them being the next chiefs, you need to have them sitting here. I'm not trying to cause a rift here. I'm just saying, from my perspective, and I work in it all the time around it, we've got some brilliant rangatahi. Brilliant. The perspective of waiting another 20 years to wait to make the boat move around is going to be too slow for me. As I said, I've run out of steam when it's come to diving. I used to teach a lot of people.
Yeah, bro.
And, you know, you can only go on for so long, but all I want to be is clever enough to know the dreams and aspirations of our people can be carried through those rangatahi, and because we've been doing the work now. No good having a fancy hapu or iwi if you ain't got soldiers. So that's how I see it. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Charles, did you have something? Yep.
Yeah, just excuse me. Support what Peter's saying. Is that what where to from here? Because they're pretty strong statements in Maori's kōrero. And they probably need to be aired all the way through the chain of command, probably. Whether we forward on a copy to the EITC or the Integrated Catchments Committee, sorry, or restrict to the Regional Council, and maybe at least it gets put before the rest of the councillors as well. He's obviously saying stop the process because we haven't got it right. Sort out over allocation and a couple of other things.
So you're going to hear this again through the hearings process?
Yeah.
Quite strongly. So it's going to be reinforced as part of our submissions back to the hearings, and thereby default back to council.
It's already in a process.
Yeah. So that's one part of it. I think it's about, as Pierre talked about, in regards to taking this relationship forward, in regards to the partnership. So it's about using his particular office. So we've only had that established. We haven't had that established for that long. I think we're lucky we've had it for 2 years, if that. So you know, we're slowly making in-grounds. I think having 2 Māori councillors on regional council, that's another step in that direction.
But as a committee, we need to send instructions to the councillors that they're there.
Yeah.
But I suppose as a committee, we need to support the kōrero that Māori's raised. And if we need to pass that, I think I know for Ahuriri, my other members that speak on South, but we would support that kōrero because it's our common interest. And if we need to send a clear message from this forum, I would move the motion. Because if we move motion, then that puts us in a better place, and it's not up to our councillors. Yep, they're on the council, they've got a wide range, but as a leadership team amongst ourselves, we do that on behalf of our hapu and our marae, to give the support to our councillors when they raise the kōrero.
Right. I mean, on the submissions hearings, it's obviously is a prescribed process.
Yes.
But it's quite a bit of a free forum in the other hui as well.
Yeah.
So would we move that as, can you word that up as a motion, Mare?
I'm trying to get my head around what those words will be, mate. Yeah.
And it's around the awhi, the kōrero that you've put in regards to water and the partnership demonstrating, because when I look at it, the whakapapa that you've kōrero, it's been through a 20-year or 30-year process, and it seems to be very challenging, and there's no direct result at the end. So moving forward, we need to put in some kind of framework and measure it.
Yeah, I get you.
So I think for me, I look at Mare's report. It's very
pretty
wide.
Yeah.
What we're actually trying to do is bring it down to a nice sharp point.
Yep.
But that has, if you like, it has capacity for something to come from it. So we kind of talked today about the treaty and obligations,
Because, just through the chair, the scope in terms of the kōrero, the ripota, is actually wide.
Yeah.
Because there's there's quite a range that are sitting within
This is happening
that.
every day with me.
Mate.
Plus.
So, while Māre's thinking about that motion,
Yeah.
ka hoki mai ki te kōrero nei e a Zach, kia kore enga. Ko tōna kōrero hinga atu he te kura, ana mai rā he te kura. That just doesn't require any change in terms of the way that we're currently structured. Kia whakatipu mai ngā mea rangatahi nei. Kia noho pāua piri mai ki ngā turi o te karaua, te kuia rāne. It doesn't require any change, but pai tēnā whakaro, engari me pehea.
You are that rangatahi, Zach.
I'm just saying, he's running out of air.
I think, the gentle part of this is that, if we're really to talk about true partnerships as Māori, we've got to show the kids. Because my mokopunas, a lot of them are Pākehā. So I got a foot in both camps, but in reality, rangi koenake is my hapu, in reality. And I want to leave a legacy that at this level, we can enhance the mana of those tamariki mokopuna that are coming through now by talking and having them in the discussion. And Māori's got many, many mokopunas. It's unbelievable. And the fire that's in his kōrero, I don't know whether it should be narrowed down to please whoever it needs to please, but there's certainly a two-prong approach to this. I see it anyway. Not just narrowing it down so we can get through the door type of thing, but more about doing it in stages and having a look how that looks for us going forward. But certainly the idea of putting in that kōrero Māori across the table here around the mokopuna, the end result.
Absolutely.
Api, I'm going to come to Api, then I'll come back to you, Mare, for your motion.
Mauri ora tātou. Mare, ka nui te mihi kia koe. Me tō kōrero hohonu, ara ki te puna wai o te whenua. E rau e tēnā. Ka hoki koe, ki atu kia koe, Zach. We forget one thing, we have got a rangatahi amongst us. Well, I think she is. This beautiful young lady over here.
Kia ora, kia ora.
Anyway. And hey, and going back, 18 months ago, it was a different council committee here, and since then we have Pere, and we have our two councillors here, Charlie and Henewai. So it's for me, and I've been here going on 3 years, so I see a better balanced committee. Okay. And then, hopefully in the near future, we will have Māori seats, okay, to complement what we have now. So, we can only get better. But getting back to Māori, he raui tō kōrero, and, I tend to go very quiet because my blood is boiling. And and I understand the frustrations that we all have to endure, but I know the likes of Henewai and Charlie over here, they're going to do all their good mahi for us. And but still, we should encourage our rangatahi to be involved also to come forth. And but anyway, we still need our elders, Hami, Uncle Bill. Ka nui te me kia koe, Uncle. So we still need these fellas, and they're very important to us anyway. So, kia ora, kia ora koutou.
Mare, motion please.
So, Mr Chairman, first and foremost, that you take my report as received, and certainly to add this comment, it highlights the role and responsibility as leaders that we are undertaking. The challenging thing for me, of course, is that I'm caught up midstream in this process, which has curtailed a long journey, and I'm really struggling actually to see the headlights in front of me because I know what it's in a process already. But I'll try my hardest to say, look, if there were any learnings out of this, we should be discussing those now so that we can at least see where there's going to be no surprises coming up with ourselves when you do put your own respective headlights down. Now, I don't know how you're going to put that in words. Emily, read my mind. I think it needs to sit around this table in some form or shape as an item for discussion because it is about mutual, as I say, effective leadership and mutual reciprocity. Those are really key values in amongst this as a conversation. I'm struggling, Mr. Chairman, to actually come up with a recommendation because I didn't think about one, and I'm very mindful I'm on cue up there because we're going to be going through this in a formal way very shortly. I'm struggling.
Perhaps I can help, and Mare will tell me whether I'm kōtiti. And it might be if we allow that tank is able to go through its process, and we accept that part and whatever the outcome might be, then what we've talked about here is about the learnings. So I know you've got a workshop coming up, which gives you just a few more minutes to consider that.
Of the tank, and I would say I'm not supportive of the tank.
Oh, you're talking about the tank.
Okay,
sorry.
I'd speak on behalf of our marae. Our hapu what's good for Māori, not the tank process. So the tank process is a process, but we're here to represent our marae, our hapu, and that's their interest, not the tank process.
So all I'm picking up and what I hadn't finished saying was that Mare's point was about what are the learnings that we can take from where we've been that help all embodied to move forward because we've still got processes that we're moving through. And so that was a particular hua that I thought you were talking about.
That's exactly, yeah.
And you could pick that up in your workshop just to sort of condense that into few words.
Some words. It'd be too over-ambitious if I was to ask for support. That I've already made a statement that I think that that the plan change is flawed in its current state, that we're asking this committee to support it. We're going to a hui a iwi next week. This is down further with webinar workshops on my report. So I didn't want to be too over-ambitious in saying to this committee, look, support Hita Taunga's position and start. So I think that would be very unfair.
Well, I think it's a collective because we've got the Moaka plan change, and I sit on as a representative on that ropu, and then obviously the same kōrero you're having is the same kōrero and concerns whānau raising. So, collectively, it's not just happening in the Ngararoro, it's the Moaka plan change coming up. So we just got to be effective as leaders. And I think as Māori, our kaitiaki tanga, our mātauranga Māori that you've mentioned, we're all on the same waka. Hey.
So simply, I think a recommendation is just to note the concerns that have been raised by the wide scope of my report. I think that would, you're just noting the concerns that I've raised across a broad area of issues.
What's the action though? Because myself, it's about just measuring, because I don't want to come back in 12 months' time and have the same conversation. Hey.
So I think what you're looking for, Peter, is that, so from Hita Taunga's point of view, the tank process has not worked. We found the process
limiting, and unsustainable.
Yeah. And our recommendation would be that regional council doesn't continue that type of tank process. Okay? My understanding is that they're not going to either, even they realise.
So this is a council committee.
Yeah.
And so I just come back to with respect to the chair and sort of say it's okay to receive the report, but individually you're able to offer whatever view you have, whether it's support or otherwise, in terms of that submission. There is a process that we're moving through for that, as opposed to this committee, council committee, being all and sundry in support of something. There's a submission process you can go through individually. So it's merely about receiving the report and accepting the report on the basis of its merits.
But how do we add value to, because there's a committee member sitting on this board representing our Te Whanganui Aotearoa, that's we talk about adding value and being leaders within our rohe, and for our marae and hapu, we need to be effective in making change, and if we see value in what you suggest, which I do, How do we support and move that forward?
We note it.
Note it? Does a note, does a note influence change?
Motion.
But so within our submission, we actually state the flaws within that tank process, and we're very clear around the actual tank process itself and how it didn't meet the needs of mana whenua. That's part of our submission.
Yeah. But those points have yet to be established through the process.
Yes, but
Uncle Bill's got his
Papa
hand up,
Bill
sorry.
there,
Oh,
Uncle Bill.
Papa Bill, what am I saying?
Just a
Papa Bill.
quick one. All you do is put your head down, and only a father-in-law can pick up a mistake from his son-in-law. So if you look at 2.4, down to the fourth one, it says the deadline date in July the 3rd. That's gone. All right?
2.4.
The fourth bullet point.
July the
Yep.
3rd, 2020.
Okay, sorry, so it's been extended. Oh, sorry, that's, I did say at the beginning there was a few typos in my report, and that's another one. So it's August the 4th.
Nothing wrong with you.
Very good. Can't buy you. No wonder I married your daughter.
hopefully you got the date right. Ka pai, Uncle Bill?
Bye-bye.
Michelle?
And also, you know, after Mohaka's wairo, and I must say I'm very worried. And unfortunately, we're the first on the rank.
Yep.
And we've got to learn from what's happened here. And I hear your mama. I stood in the kara whatever. There was no water. I saw the video of them rescuing the tuna. I fear that will happen to us. And therefore, on the behalf of the marae I represent, I wish the tautoko you
Kia ora.
our other whānau from the Tai Whenua representation may want to speak.
So at this stage, can we just, that we receive and support Heratanga's report and the actions they are taking in regards to their submissions in regards to tank?
In the report, there's not a problem receiving the report,
We take
but I
it forward,
suppose it's the action, and this is happening throughout our rohi, and we, as I said, as leaders, we need to see a clear message. It's not up to our councillors can say what they need to say, but for ourselves as a committee, we've got a responsibility to lead change. If we're not leading change, you just question, and because it's been a long journey for you, and we've got to make a change now, and we just got to clear. I think we've got to send a message that something proactive needs to be done.
If it may help, we ran a number of webinar sessions with our communities over the last 2-3 weeks in order to bring them up to speed with the many issues. I haven't shared a number of those issues, and it'd be unfair of me to say, support it, but you don't know the full extent. And I guess it's going through these processes where you keep your cards close to your chest. You've heard me outline a few of the matters, but I think it'd be more responsible if you kind of knew a little bit more about it before you could say, look, we support Heratanga's position. We've spent 6-7 years with a microscope just pulling the layers back, and I think we owe it to, those that want to get a really good understanding of it need to also understand all those issues, and we've only talked about one or two.
But you got nowhere. And that's the thing. You got nowhere. Your tank process, it went through a process, and it doesn't seem to have met Maori needs. And then we've got happy management plans, our management plans in place that's not meeting the need. So if the framework's not meeting what it's intended to do, how do you affect change for Maori?
So have you got a motion for us, Pete?
I was leaving that up to Mate. But and I'm support. I know we've got to go through a process. The regional council's got to go, but they've got a legislative requirement to act in regards to the act. And we're going through 3 waters at the moment. So the government's looking at, where's the right body? Have we got the right systems in place? So it's most really a valuable time. And then the constraints with the PGF. Obviously, those applications have been fast-tracked through government to implement, and then that impacts on here taonga because of Nararoro. So when you look at those fast track changes that are going to happen, if you ain't up to the ball, you're going to miss the waka's going to sail. Hey, so how do we act in a short time frame for you to get, you know, whether it's a K5 success, or how do you measure for yourselves for here taonga the kōrero we're having? Hey, 'cause, as an emotion, I support, but I want a strong emotion to support Wairoa, Ahuriri, what's happening on the Mohaka with Pahuera, because all our iwis are involved in plan change, and I know having a discussion, I think tomorrow, around the Mohaka plan change, so Bonnie told me. So
We're recommending co-design and going
co-design,
forward.
yep. Effective code. With the principles
Effective co-design.
with the principles founded on Te Rite of Waitangi. Because it's covered under the
Manoa
article. Too,
Absolutely.
Yep.
So that's we've landed.
Oh,
Did you get that?
that's one.
That's one. Yep.
Which, if I go back to my earlier kōrero through the chair, is the approach that's been taken with Mohaka as a result of looking back at Tank. So
There's a lot more kōrero still to go on.
Pahuera has been part of that discussion, as have other iwi within that catchment.
But there's still a lot of kōrero to go on, and if we look at a 7-year process to get to this stage and not even in agreement, it just raises question with me. We can't get there in 7 years, and how are we going to get there in a short time frame? I'm just saying, I'm asking that question, and have confidence in the question, because if I sit on a committee and I can't agree with, there's no way and it's not to be a hindrance to the process, but to make sure when people come back and judge me in 10 years' time, say, hey, you signed off, you shouldn't have signed off, I can hold my head up high, so I did.
I may as well go straight to the jugular. I mean, it's the relief that you seek. So the relief that we're seeking is to rewrite that whole plan.
Yep.
Now it's broadcast on there. You know, I won't be asking that of you. All I'm asking is, I've outlaid a number of different issues and concerns. You've heard them. I'm hearing that you are individually supporting aspects of it, just to be safe in your own understanding of the complexity of what we're proposing here. We've talked about how there's a staged approach inside this plan, which we don't like. I'm talking about there should be direct regulations to set limits, standards, both in terms of quantity and quality, and the relief we seek is not in the current plan.
Which is heading towards the hearings committee.
Which is hearing towards the hearings committee.
So where we landed, we've had a beautiful report. I think we've had a fantastic discussion, very in depth.
Yeah.
Which is good, because it was actually needed and long overdue, more than likely. So you've got the position of Here Taonga and how they intend to proceed going forward in regards to this. So we are using the hearings process to air our views and to bring out into public what we believe to be the shortcomings of that whole tank process as the starting point, and moving ourselves forward in regards to the findings of the actual tank process. There's the ability of other tauwhena or other rohe to support those submissions, and or either put their own submissions in.
Well, it's around the values and aspirations of Māori, so we're not just talking about Here Taonga, we're talking...
Get that, Peter, I get that. Hey, but you also have an obligation yourselves within the rohe to actually, if you like, take the rangatiratanga of the kaupapa yourselves, and don't just put it underneath the korowai of Tiwi Māori. So it's about you stepping forward as well. I think what I'm getting out of this is, and I understand why you've taken the track, because we can all see what's going to happen down the track if we continue to use this type of process. We will all find ourselves in this type of position. It's how do we improve the process that we've just been through, Here Taonga have experienced, because it hasn't worked. Quite clearly, Māori's made that quite clear. We believe the outcome of that process has not worked for Māori. It does not work for Here Taonga, it does not work for Māori. I think what you're trying to do is ensuring it doesn't happen to you.
Yeah, all of us.
All of us. Yeah, we don't want to find ourselves in that position. So let's receive the report. Let's note that the comment, the kōrero of Māori in regards to the composition of how the discussions took place, of our input into the overall tank process being treated as a stakeholder rather than a partner, not being part of the co-design, actually being brought into the process once the direction had been determined. It's about getting in front of that stuff, the quality of the partnership.
So what's the action? The action point, because that's always action point. So what's the action point?
So the action point for us here, because Here Tonga, we've done our action. We're putting our submissions through. I understand Ahuriri are going to put their submissions through. Those are action points.
But the action as a committee, as a collective, do we say to Peter, we want you to come back at the next hui, and then we want a full meeting in regards to the people that are involved in this process to present back to the board? What's the
Just through the chair, that's rather preemptive of a process that we're already in. And
What's
besides
forward?
which, I don't need that extra work. So I think the action, as the chair has already laid down, is to receive the report and allow each one to make individual submissions as they see fit.
But we're not individuals, we're here as a collective in the council representing so as a Māori standing committee, we're a collective committee because we all speak on behalf of our marae, so we're making a collective response, not an individual response. We're actually saying from Wairoa right down to Waipukara Parangahau that collectively we support a better process being implemented in regards to the tiriti of Waitangi to affect change in regards to awa, water, wai. Hey, would that be the motion?
Mahi tahi tana.
Hey, well, that's the motion. I'm able to put that motion forward, and then that shows that we're collective in our response as a committee, and then everyone's contributing. Hey, because I support Parangahau, I support Wairoa, I support obviously Ahuriri. I think if we send a message that we're collective in our response, we want.
So can you repeat your motion?
Did you get that, Annalie?
I will try.
Yep.
Okay, that the Maori Committee receives and notes their reports and note concerns raised by the Tawhina Here Tonga in relation to the submission to the tank plan change. Was there anything else?
No, it's around the motion. The motion I just said, sorry, I didn't say it off the top of my head in regards to, it was around that the committee support.
So what we see, what Here Tonga saw is the failures of the tank process.
Oh, it's around the tiriti, because Article 2, the tiriti covers, and the legislation currently covers, it's when you enact the legislation, because the RMA, it's set up and people are changing it, but the Act, if it's taken to its true value, it'll work.
Then it's the treaty you need to focus on.
Yeah. And then if we implement that in the process through the council, because they're the legislative body governing, then they've got an onus to make sure that the tiriti, and it's already in I think the charter of the regional council to work within that framework, but we need to make the current policy active, and that's how it's meant to be used. Like the RMA when it was originally set up had some good points. I quite thought it was quite good, but then it hasn't been taken to its full value. And I know they're talking about changing it now, but if the intent of the RMA was put into place, then there's enough of that in the legislation to protect Māori, because it recognised kaitiakitanga, under Section 6 there, it recognised all that partnership, but it's just not practiced.
Peter's got a point, if I may, Chairman. I know we're dwelling on this a bit too long, but what I've found is that drop down from, you go through the RMA, the coastal thing space, and it's got this hierarchical order coming down into regional plan, the regional resource management plan. It's that area of training you need to understand where the central government, the main purpose of the Act comes down to those things that are instruments to enable the sorts of aspirations that we are wanting to have. And I tell you what, if you don't go through that training, you won't know. And it's really critically important, folks. You do know, where those linkages are in principle to Manawatu, the sustainability management, but it's in the rules of the plan. And you will need to put a microscope down on making sure that there's connectivity in the aspirations that you see that's been supported by major, policies and obligations. But I think it do us really well to just have some kind of workshop in that space. I think that's probably the outcome.
There's the action.
It's a good action.
Through the chair, because the part you say is quite correct, and that's about the interpretation of the treaty through all of those parts that you've just talked about.
Yes.
Which isn't about sort of, because at the end of the day, regional council will still work within the interpretation of those statutes. So I'm not sure whether or not that motion is really capturing something that's going to be of great value at the end.
Hear what Peter's saying though.
So let's separate the actual report, because the report doesn't actually matter. It is what it is. It's the actual action in regards to the relationship. Where's this relationship going?
Well, the motion is it's around it's working through the Te Rito Waitangi to enact the RMA in its true intent.
Yep.
And I go back to Charlie's first comment in regards to when we raised the question in regards to the Treaty of Waitangi and the Council's commitment to it. There's one thing, the point Charlie raised is he would like to see, like to have that put up front. So it kind of helps him in his role. And would that be a fair statement, Charlie?
I definitely want to put it in front of the other councillors.
Yeah.
And so we're supporting that. So if we frame that up like that, then that allows him to have that broader conversation with councillors. And as a committee, we're giving him direction, him and Hanawai, direction to have that bigger conversation. And then if we need to come back, and it's all over social media. I know, these social media comments in regards to this.
We're actually asking council to report back to us.
Or report back to us, but he has to have a conversation with the other councillors in regards to our kōrero and obviously their viewpoints.
That'll form part of the report from this hui back to our councils. No doubt these two will speak towards it.
But it's not there. All I'm saying is we're making a decision based on our marae representation, not saying Hanawai or Charlie, you know, what they do as councillors for their rohis up to themselves. Because you say our Maori, but they're voted in by the community, whereas we're here for Māori. So yeah, we've got a different constituent group that we represent, and it's just not putting added pressure on our councillors just because they're Māori. It doesn't matter they're elected by the community, but as Māori elected on this board by our marae, we're saying that's where. What we're saying as leaders within our framework. So and it's not, it's not up to. I just don't want to put pressure on our Māori councillors.
Thanks, Pete. We need to wrap this up. So, Peter, all we're trying to do is we want to know what the council's position is in regards to the Treaty of Waitangi. We know this is mostly going to have to lead to a workshop to actually establish what that is, but we've got to start the process and ask the question of them.
So do we make that as action point? They come back and present back to us at our next hui.
Yep.
As an action point.
I've never ever actually heard council's official position in regards to their position around the Treaty of Waitangi and the partnership.
So it's action point then.
Because it is actually an unstated position. If you look through all of our strategic corporate LTP documentation, there isn't a statement of commitment at this point in time. By the next month, the LTP and the strategy plan process we're going through offers an opportunity for that sort of insight.
So is that the action point? We come back at and that gives time to everyone to think about it. And then I'm happy to move a motion. I'll move a motion. I've got no problem moving a motion. But if we have time to digest this kōrero, because it is a big kōrero, we know that, but it's a kōrero that we need to resolve. We don't want to keep having kōrero about it. So if we give that time frame, it's 4 to 6 weeks to come back with a response to what we've discussed today, that gives us time to kōrero within our own tai whenua, our own hapu in regards to response, and then when we come back, then we may be, we'll be in a better position if we need. I like motions. I like passing motions because then it sends a message. But if we have to wait, it's been 7 years, so we wait 6 weeks. Well, action point.
Yes,
Action point.
The action point is that what you said is the Hawke's Bay Regional Council come back and state their position in regards to the Te Rito of Waitangi. That's what you just previously said. Yep. And that'll be our action point. And then if we need to look at a motion, we can come back.
Could you just add on to that, and also around cultural competency too? that's reflected in, of course, the trickle through, whether that's through to staff, and I brought that issue up about cultural competency. And I think it does reflect in terms of the makeup and composition of hearings committees,
Easy to come back in terms of current position, because that's legislative.
Treaty of Waitangi, but it's about cultural competency in order to define and understand, but then implement and execute, and have confidence in knowing that.
So through the chair, when you come back to it, that was the whole underlying position of this committee in particular over the last 12 years. And that was to mandate for a position such as the position that I sit in, and with the resources there, was to bring it to a level of cultural capability. If you ask for like a line on a graph or somewhere in terms of where that's currently at, probably a difficult proposition to reply to, other than to say that that's what fundamentally the Māori Partnerships Group is about, is to bring a higher level of cultural capability and competency within HBRC staff.
It's a big job.
Well, that's it, and it also takes in place in regards to the recruitment process. And I know a number of different organisations have been asked that question in the recruitment process. Where does a cultural competency sit when they're going through the recruitment process? So if we had that added in the job description, demonstrate your cultural competency to work with Māori, it raises the value. So yep, you're retraining current staff, but when you're hiring new staff, obviously there's obligation on them to deliver on that cultural competency section prior to.
Yeah.
So we've got an action here, thank you.
I'll just say, I'm seeking regional council to report back to this committee on councillors' position on the position of the Treaty of Waitangi. Is that correct?
And then Mare added a bit in regards to cultural competency. In regards to the effectiveness of cultural competency within the framework of Hawke's Bay Regional Council.
Yep.
It's
sorry, it can't be answered again.
Yeah, but it puts it out there, and I've been on enough interview panels, and I see the Te Ao Māori part right at the end of a sheet on a job description, and then you say to people, and they said, they go, kia ora, yes, I'm going to do a real class and that takes up the cultural competency, but to demonstrate.
We need to move us along.
So if I can just respond to that. Earlier on, I indicated that this was probably the best forum, and it's the right forum, to advocate for a responsiveness to Māori strategy, or whatever we might term that. The competency part that you talk about is actually one of the po that sits within that. So what I'm suggesting is that leave the competency part out for this point, easy enough to respond back to the other part. The strategy and time, this forum and committee will be the lead on.
And it's a pity Rick's not here, because Rick Barker said in a hui that we had previously, he said, hey, it's about the best person for the job. And that's Katie Pai, but hey, we got a tiriti of Waitangi and we represent Māori, so we need to drive Māori interest. So Rick's Katie Pai, he has his kōrero, and that's how he feels. And a lot of business people in their framework say best person for jobs, but we need to say where. And Zach mentioned about rangatahi, where's the opportunity for rangatahi to be engaged in that process to develop their skill level. So and that's where the competency section comes within the framework.
Cool. Well, look, I think this has been fairly well discussed, eh?
Yeah.
So we've got our action.
Yeah.
All those in favour, please say aye.
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 Anybody opposed?
Peter
I
was
moved.
Second it.
Second it, Peter.
I agree.
Ka pai, thank you, Uncle.
I want to go through the chair.
Yep. Thank you, Uncle.
Nāne tuni Mike, I don't know if I ever know what me ko tautoko here, whether our committee has acknowledged Zach's attendance today.
Yes.
We're asking for a rangatahi to be present. We know quite well that Hine was here, we elected her. But what's going to happen? Is anything going to happen?
So each tai whenua can determine the makeup of its. Each tai whenua can determine the makeup of its committee.
Okay.
So it has the opportunity to appoint a rangatahi if that's what they want to do.
Yeah.
Zach, you are the rangatahi.
All right. Kāre tino pai ko karanga mai ki a Zach. Ka hara mai mo te kore noi ho. So he's got some idea that each tai whenua is going to look into that. Okay.
Okay. So, can I have a move and a second for our reports, please?
I'll move.
Thank you, Peter. And thank you, Haniwai. Kia ora, everybody. But that was great, actually. Well needed, sorely needed, actually. So we have a number of, going to do these late items.
Transport one first.
Want to do, Api, want to do your transport paper? Keep it to the points if you could, please, Api.
It's this one. Yep. Here we go. It's under here somewhere. Yep, you got them. Oh, okay.
I don't mind.
Is this on? Kia ora, Mr. Chairman. Is that on? Yeah.
Yes, you're on.
Everyone, has everyone got a copy?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, kia ora no tātou. Hoki mai anō ki te mura o te ahi. Okay. Hey, listen, I'll try not to take too long, because I think this is this is just a discussion at this stage, and it needs to we need to go through it as a iwi again, but of course we've only got a short time frame. Okay, we've got to be mindful of that. So I just written this brief report. And of course, the hui was facilitated by Stantec. Pierre, can you just explain to us who Stantec are?
Sorry, I can't.
Annalie, do you know who they are?
Stantec, no.
The guys who facilitated now, I know they're...
Stantec is a consulting engineering firm.
okay, so their main office, I believe, is based in Christchurch, but they do have an office somewhere in Hastings. Okay, so that's who they are. Okay, and so this is on behalf of the 4 district and regional councils. And of course, the transport review cycle is every 3 years, and is currently focused on the following key themes. Have a look at the other paper, that one there with the key themes on it. The other paper that you have. Quickly have a look at that, okay? Uncle, have a look at that paper if you've got it. Thanks to John, it's been sent to our whānau in Wairua.
Just to add, Stantec New Zealand, it's Auckland-based, and it's a global full service engineering environmental contract that provides services.
Oh, the Auckland-based. Okay.
Just so you know.
So the workshop that we had, going back to the Monday, the 22nd of June, and so these were the workshops we spent 15 minutes in, and we rotated. And so there was a heap of kōrero that came out of it, and I'm not privy to the outcome of the full report yet. And I tell you what, there was a lot of stuff. Okay, so that gives you an idea with all those examples of what that actually meant. Okay, just reading through it. But so going back to my first paper that I wrote, I just put ideas that I felt were important for us as a iwi. Okay. Some of the stuff was my input, and some of the stuff came from other people. And so we all know about the rail freight transport to the port via the Whakatū hub. And we've just heard recently, last week, that 20 million had come from PGF. And hopefully a hub in Wairua, that would be awesome to help get heavy trucks off the roads, and that's going to limit damage to the road and hopefully generate employment in those areas. Transport choice, I haven't written anything there, but if you have a look at the examples there, try and use your own imagination and see what would benefit us as iwi. And so when it comes to resilience, that's sort of like damage or erosion, but then I kind of suggested to the committee that hey, why not look around around marae in general road maintenance. And I know there's marae, say take example Mōtio, you only go halfway down the road, then you hit stone, gravel.
Yep.
So that's not so that's a road that needs to be tar sealed, as far as I'm concerned. There are the marae, I presume, in all our areas. Okay. And you know, and general road maintenance, I know around our marae at Kōpāriki, we need some road maintenance, and we need some serious widening of our road around our marae. When it comes to safety, I've mentioned that, extensive driver training and education required, and so that came out of a report by Transport New Zealand. And you know, and when you they had stats they presented these stats concerning Wairoa being the worst area in Hawke's Bay.
I resemble that remark.
When it came to you know accidents, I suppose, and all that, and so so that's why I wrote that down, because that's important to us as iwi. Community well-being, and so I wrote that down as us representing us anyway, Māori health and environmental initiatives and outcomes, and public transport to and from our marae, you know, and that's something that has been offered, I suppose, to the community. Okay, and then when we talk about economic growth, I thought, well, and that did come up in our workshops about Māori, sorry, no, that did not come up. I brought that up about Māori health and environmental initiatives and outcomes. And, oh, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one. Economic growth. Māori tourism, that did come up in our hui. And then I kind of looked at Māori land development and papakainga, so I mentioned all these. Organic growing of vegetables and fruit, and you know, when we talk about our papakainga, so this is very new for us as a iwi. You know, it's only been in the past 6-7 years, I think. I think the first papakainga in Hawke's Bay would have gone up over at Waiheke with the other whānau over there, the Tarihas, hey? They would have been, what, about 7 years?
Yeah.
Something like that. So, so you know, and then of course your development's going up, and you've seen over at Long Farnham Road there at our marae, we have the two developments there. And you know what's, when we talk about, I heard the kōrero about the rainwater and so on, and you know, when we talk about our papakainga, sustainable homes, and you know, I've seen homes being built around Hastings where the homes today are catching the rainwater, and I don't see it on our papakainga buildings, not the ones at Kōpāriki anyway. We're not catching the rainwater, you know, and that's to do with sustainable homes. So we should be having that kōrero with TPK and say, hey, you missed that part of the design of our homes. We need to be catching our rainwater, because then there's less stress on the aquifer. Hey. And you know, and when we talk about the aquifer, and for us who are from Kōpāriki...
How does this lead into transport, Api? I'm sorry, but time-wise, transport.
Well, this is all to do with the transport, because it's all involved in this.
Please carry on.
Okay, so it's all, you know, and so I'm just sort of adding in what I'm hearing from our previous kōrero, you know, about the water supply and that, and so we're very lucky when we do have our papakainga being built on our marae, that we can tap into our own water to the aquifer. Okay, so then, so we're looking at the time frame, and that's it, guys. Only a few more months, you know, June, July, August, and September. I did say to Mike and Michelle that you know, we don't have much time, and so maybe if I was to push this on behalf of our iwi, these ideas, you know, at least we've got, I think these ideas are important to us as a iwi, for a start anyway, you know, and then so the next 3-year round, we'll leave that to Henewai and our younger ones who may come along. and to look at that for the future. So basically, that's my brief report at this stage.
Thank you, Api. So where would you like us to go with this? What was the outcome you're looking from out of this today from us?
Well, if you support me to implement these ideas, that's where I want to go with it.
Okay.
Chair, I'd like to make a comment. I support it, Chair, because I think in this whole rafter, whether it's transport or whatever, especially around Papakainga, we've got an advantage in the sense of people collectively thinking the same, doing the same things, and being ready, I guess, in the midst of our future, you know, that COVID's just brought something out that's nobody's experienced in the past. So traffic slowed down on the road because everybody now is at home. And I think into the future, we're going to be working from home. So why not have a Papakainga that's got a hub, that's got business running on it, that's got, you know, a power station that comes from Unison, that they've got relationships with Unison, that they put a, you know, transport place there where you go and hook up for the electricity for your car on the Papakainga. You don't go down this garage, it's all here. So that sort of thinking around the transportation, well-being, community well-being. Why don't we have a well-being centre on your Papakainga? Hey, I'm doing one, and it looks very different to the normal well-being centre. But it's all about the whenua, about the moana, and I work in the mental health, and it's about our whānau. Reciprocity between the environment. So the stuff that you've opened up, Matra, it helps us to understand how we can place ourselves. I see this as a big PDF.
On stage.
With your support.
Any other comment? Anyone?
Thank you, Api, for your report. And I just want to bring some context, and it might be useful for you to take back to your next hui. But there's no doubt there's a wave across the motu of reconnecting with our whenua, being able to utilise our land through tools like Te Puni Kōkiri's Papakainga Fund. And that might be slow for some here, that's quite fast for Here Taonga. And what we've done for our Papakainga was we set up a meeting with Hastings District, Napier City, NZTA, because when you look at our semi-rural area, those are usually, you know, a district, maybe a city, as well as NZTAs involved because we're semi-rural. We got them all on a Zoom meeting and said the development contribution costs that we pay for building Papakainga have three elements. One is towards our parks and reserves in the district, the other is to roading, and the other is to facilities. So what we asked them to do was look at lowering the speed limit in Waiahiki, and every sort of Papakainga area is different, but when you think of a hub of our people growing, families, tamariki, who actually have the right to access pathways to be active within their community, as well as, say, footpaths. So in asking our councils to say, hey, you need to invest more in our communities because actually we're growing and we're paying rates in some way or another, or taxes some way or another, to keep our community safe. So that's the direction we took with the councils, and you'll probably see in Waiahiki you have to drive 50 now, so hopefully you don't think you're driving 70 anymore. But I mean, that's the how in terms of the conversations that need to be had with those in control to say, actually, we're a community that needs to be protected, that is safe, and that we can contribute and be active. Yeah.
Any other comment? Michelle?
Just to add to that, Papakainga, there's a meeting on Saturday for the Pene Taraha whānau, so that's another one going up Waiahiki, 1st of July, I think. Just to comment on number one, there is a when they opened up the railway line, because I live on Railway Road, there is they created a depot where the logs go, and there were about I saw 2 trains go back out to this way, and then it stopped. So the trucks are back on the road. Driving through this morning, there's many potholes, Charlie? It's pretty bad. They're big potholes. The road is dangerous. So there's that point. And my nephew had an accident last week. He flipped his car many times. He came out of the car, and that was because of goats. So that's a regional council issue too. But yeah, just to update you about the railway line, and in regards to the roading and marae. Here's an example, like we put in that marae renovation application, and especially with regard Tākitime marae, it's because the whare is nowhere near the road, but there's a long metal road to it. I always see them when we have any big hui or if they've got any tangihanga on there, they're always mopping the marae because the dust is coming in. That's not good.
Yeah.
It's not good. That's a health issue. And so I was saying, well, why don't we look at putting in the application, part of the application, putting in a tāsio car park just in front of the whare, so that we can try and mitigate that. And then we grew a whole lot of trees up there to eventually try and take some of that dust. So I hear you in that issue, and I'm sure that's it's also a health issue.
Of course, yeah.
When it's a metal road, as I understand, there's supposed to be tāsio if it's near the road. But when you have such big marae like that in Taiho, big potholes, the quote was $250,000. So, they were allowed 50. So there was no way we could address that.
I just have one point. Yeah, my 2 points are just two. Mōtio, yeah, agree with what Api said, Mōtio. And I know there's constraints because that road's been a paper road and that, but it'd be good to get tar seal down there for transport. Then there's no dust, but it's been there for 100 and something years. But it'd be good if through the Transport Committee, if we could get the infrastructure to put tar seal in there, better for our whānau. The two, just what Zach said around sustainability as well, because obviously through COVID-19, we're seeing, or it's been demonstrated by having less polluters on the road, what it does for the environment. So when we talk about transport and we talk about sustainability, electric cars and that, moving forward in the future, potentially in that transport sector, should be a lot more done in the electric space, and it's a renewable resource and that goes along there. So that most probably would be a focus point from us ARP to look at alternative measures within our community to bring a clean green solution.
And sorry, I hadn't quite finished. There's no public transport supported by the Regional Council in Wairoa. And I remember that in the last report, and so I said, you can only go up from zero. There's a community bus that's supported in another way. There's the bus from the hospital that takes people to and fro, but there is no public transport in Wairoa.
Exactly. They have the same problem in Waipawa, and what I mentioned to Anne on that particular day was, hey, look, the school buses are doing nothing during the day. Why can't we use those for the public transport? So she did say, yeah, that's a good idea.
Charlie?
Yeah, just thanks, Api, for this paper. Made me a bit shy. I'm on the bloody Transport Committee myself. But just a point for everyone, we reference the Papakainga. Yeah, I was lucky enough to have Mika up in Roping yesterday. We had a look at trees and them. They're building 5 up there, so there's 2 houses underway. But one of the big problems they had was the roading, because under the bylaws you have to have a tar seal road or a concrete road to the house. They got a pretty long road leading into the Papakainga, then another little cul-de-sac off to the housing place. But there is a way around it. I think the Papakainga is like, they pay 75% of your infrastructure anyway. But it still leaves you a big hole if you've got a long bloody road that needs tar sealing. But one way around it is that each district or council has their roading vote, and they Wairoa is subsidised by so many percent, probably about 80%, or it's quite a large subsidisation. But it must be forecast in your 3-yearly forecast. So you got to lobby your councillors now. And let them know that they should be putting aside a vote for Papakainga housing. That has to be a great amount, but just if it's not in the budget, then they can't get it after the fact. But if they put it in their forecast every 3 years, then it's there. Especially if you're expecting growth in your district. And bloody Hawke's Bay's leading the way by the look of it. They actually slot us in under the East Coast, so the 2 houses in Roping are the first 2 Papakainga on the whole of the East Coast. But it's all around that transport thing. And I think the one about Marais, they were built before those bylaws changed. So they're not forced to put a tar seal on, but obviously would be good. And maybe that can be put on the vote too. You know what I mean? So yeah, you got money there that can help, as long as you lobby your councillors to put it forward at the right time.
Right. So, Api, just in regards to your question, so there's a couple of things that stood out for me within this paper. So quite clearly, Māori want to be engaged in regards to the transportation strategic plan. Unfortunately, the Transport Committee is getting towards the end of that process when they finally realise that they hadn't engaged Māori. So we would like to be engaged. So once again, you're going to go through a strategic plan process again in 3 years' time. So I suppose we want to signal here and now that we want to be part of the process when it starts, not when it ends. Your second question was in regards to you continuing to lead the process in regards to the issues you've raised on behalf of iwi. I think given the timeframes and the way everything's been compressed, that we're supportive of that.
Yeah, he's elected.
So you've heard some of the issues. So we're actually supporting the issues that you've raised, and we're actually going to continue with it, bringing those to the table for them. But the other part of this is, yeah, we appreciate being engaged. We'd love to be engaged, as you've heard, but we'd like to be engaged right from the start of the process, not towards the end of the process.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'm hoping that we don't have to wait another 3 years. I'm hoping to implement some of the stuff now.
Oh yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, so that's what I'm here now, not 3 years.
But
I'm not waiting around 3 years. I'm going for it now.
I think you missed the point, Api.
Yeah, I get the point.
The point is we want to be engaged.
I get the point.
So if you can relay to your committee that please engage with Māori.
I want to be retired in 3 years.
That's why I accept that. Are we happy with that?
Aye.
So we have a move and a second
Yeah, I'll move.
to receive Api's paper
Yep.
and the action. So
Move.
thank you, Peter. Thank you, Charlie.
After that, I just want to raise one point, because I did bring it up around the economic, and we've covered it in the water when we talked about water and the storage and the big kaupapa, because that featured in obviously the Economic Strategy Committee member. So I don't think we need to revisit that corridor over around because that's coming up in the next meeting. Yep.
Come on. So all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Received.
I never heard.
Thank you. Kia ora, Rick.
Kia ora. Sorry, apologies for being
You've
late.
been hanging around with the Māoris too long, boy. You turned up just in time for lunch.
I thought that as I drove in. The truck had just arrived. I thought, well, I've timed this perfectly. Thank you.
So look,
Drawing that to everybody's attention.
So we've got lunch thing for 12:30. Straight after lunch, we're going to have Chris. We're going to have Chris come and give us reports in regards to operational. Rick, would you like to say grace on our behalf, since you got here just in time for lunch, mate?
I'm not very good at those sorts of things. Yeah. Well, out of practice, I use good with a Yeah. Our Father above, give us thanks for the food we're about to have. Give us our thanks for the company we keep. Give our thanks for the work that we undertake on behalf of the people, and may all good flow from the work that we do.
Fish really good.
1 o'clock.
Didn't even take a moment.